I can do this one.
Okay.
This is something I feel like we get consulted for a lot, but
Yeah.
this one, looking in kind of the deep fat is where you get most of the answers. Overlying it, you can see some like necrosis and like maybe some signs of like ischemia. But what they're
Yeah.
really looking for,
You're right.
yeah, so like,
I like that.
hmm
That's a really important point because sometimes if you don't have the fat, this should be a clue. Maybe we need to look deeper here, right? The epidermis you can barely even tell it's epidermis, right? It's like you can see the ghost shape of it, but it's all pink/red. All the nuclei are washed out, dead, totally dead. And yes, like you said, that's ischemic necrosis. That tells you acute ischemia, something bad is happening to the skin, is all dying and bleeding too. So what were you saying about the subcutis? Sorry.
yep. So when you see that, you go down and like, what's causing that? So looking in it, you're really looking for like the small vessels and looking for calcium in it, calcification. So you'll feel, yep, kind of like the purpley
Yeah,
color.
very good. So what is this then?
So this is calciphylaxis.
Calciphylaxis, very good. So calciphylaxis is a complicated disease, and it can be kind of challenging to diagnose because I think the question that comes up a lot is, this is, as you guys know, this is a disease that is a horrible disease that is very morbid and often fatal in a significant number of patients, and is very difficult to treat, by my understanding, and is in patients usually with end-stage renal disease, chronic kidney failure. And it particularly in patients that have a high BUN is one of the thoughts is that the high uremic level is part of what drives this process, and also the abnormal secondary hyperparathyroidism that you get from having long-term end-stage renal disease plays a role in this too. It seems like again is pretty complicated. I think physiology of this disease or pathophysiology of this disease. But in any case, that derangement, the uremic state, the altered calcium and phosphate metabolism, and happens is it drives calcium being deposited throughout the body, particularly around vessels, including small little vessels, and that over time somehow causes the vessels to like not flow well and to thrombose. At least that's, I guess, what's happening because usually we see not only calcification around the vessels, but we often see fibrin thrombi filling up the vessels. In the ideal situation, you want to see calcs around tiny vessels. The smaller the vessel, the better and the more helpful the finding is to me. We see calcs in the walls of like arteries all the time, right? We can see it in atherosclerotic plaque in older people, and also in the media of muscular vessels, like arteries. We see something called Monkeyberg's medial calcific stenosis, which is either a cause or effect of hypertension. We're not really sure, but probably plays some relationship, either causative or resultant from hypertension. So calcs in bigger vessels don't necessarily mean anything. But when we see calcs around little tiny capillaries, that is a phenomenon I don't usually see except in calciphylaxis. So the reason I bring this up is because this is such a serious disease, and because we can incidentally see calcifications in a variety of settings, you want to be really sure that you're right about this. And so I find that it's often hard, and different people have different thresholds for what they're willing to consider enough to call calciphylaxis. So I'll tell you my way of doing it. I do feel like I probably am a little bit more aggressive about diagnosing calciphylaxis than some people. I don't know if I'm right or not. I've just noticed that my threshold is lower for making the diagnosis, and I also put a ton of weight on the clinical scenario. There are cases reported of non-uremic calciphylaxis, calciphylaxis in patients without renal failure. But I am really cautious to make that diagnosis, and usually I won't make it outright. I'll usually like suggest it. But I have seen a couple cases that I thought were pretty convincing that the patient had. So how does this present? This presents usually with firm, indurated, very painful areas in the fatty areas of the body. So often on the hips, the buttocks, the abdomen, the trunk, the fatty, thicker fat areas. But I also have seen a variety of cases that I thought fit really well for calciphylaxis on the lower leg. It's harder on the lower leg because we often see nonspecific calcifications in the fat, in the dermis, etc. So again, I ideally am looking for a patient that has high BUN and creatinine, and often as chronic renal failure, has very painful, often has pain out of proportion to examination, plaques. They begin to eventually break down and turn into black eschars that open up and get necrotic, may drain out, necrotic material, even bad stuff. And it can be horribly disfiguring and very, very painful. And then microscopically, I like to see calcifications around small vessels is the best thing. Some cases I see where I don't have that. I have other calcifications there, either fine granular calcifications in the dead fat or dead or dying fat, like here. See, we're seeing some frothy, bubbly xanthomatous cells, and then we're beginning to see calcium get deposited on that, little tiny speckles of calcium. The calcium sometimes can be chunky like this, but sometimes it's super fine. So this is one of the times I find a von Casa stain, which stands for calcium phosphate, this form of calcium. And it will turn it like from this purple color to like a blackish, a black kind of color, black/brown color. So it can help make it stand out. Also, when you got a lot of necrosis, sometimes there's nuclear debris and it's hard to tell, are these specks of dead, broken down karyorectic debris? Are they just nuclear fragments or are they calcs? Sometimes also you get secondary bacterial infections superimposed, especially if you get a big necrotic eschar ulcer. You can get a bunch of infectious bacteria in there, like growing on the dying tissue. And I find bacteria and calcs, I think, can actually closely mimic each other. So sometimes a Gram stain and a von Casa can be helpful. So those are some tips for real life. But I want to see fat necrosis. I would like to see calcs around tiny little vessels. Sometimes it'll make like a little tiny circle around the vessel, like here. Oh, that's perfect right there. And then you will see calcs sometimes around bigger vessels. Sometimes the vessels that are a little bit larger will dilate and get calcs around the walls. Sometimes they'll make like a little donut. There was one over here that had that, like, oh, right here. This pattern, though, occasionally you can see in atherosclerosis or monkeybergs. So be cautious. If you just see a donut of calcification in a incidental basal cell carcinoma excision, that probably is just incidental monkeyberg's calcific stenosis and not calciphylaxis. So again, the clinical is really crucial for this disease. And I really depend heavily on my dermatologist and also the nephrologist and their input and thoughts about whether something's likely to be calciphylaxis. And if I'm not sure, I'll be descriptive and say, I'm concerned, or I think, to me also, if I get big eschars in a patient with end-stage renal disease and I see acute ischemia and necrosis and some calcifications, even if I don't see it in the vessels, to me, that's calciphylaxis until you can prove to me it's something else. Because what else is causing it, right? So that's kind of the approach that I take from a philosophical viewpoint, is that you've got this setup where the person has renal failure, maybe even has known hyperparathyroidism from it, and then has painful plaques that are ulcerating and necrosing, and I'm seeing calcs and I'm seeing acute ischemia. Even if I don't see the calcified vessels, surely that's what's causing it, unless you can show me that there's another reason, right? What else would be causing it? So that is really the way I conceptually think about it. You can consider that for whatever you like. You, again, like I said, those are the changes in the subcutis. You will also usually see fibrin thrombi in the vessels, often multiples. Again, sometimes you see all these findings, sometimes you don't. This case is really good because it's got everything. Another finding that is classically talked about, but I've only seen in a limited number of cases, is you get little fine calcs around the eccrine coils, which I used to say I'd never seen that in anything except for calciphylaxis, but I did see a case maybe a year or two ago of, like, I can't remember what the cause was. They had some inflammatory I can't remember if they had like a ruptured cyst, something caused fat necrosis and inflammation. And this person did have some calcs around their eccrine coils, and they clearly did not fit for calciphylaxis clinically. So occasionally you can see it, but there have been some studies that said calcs around the eccrine coils are a really specific finding for calciphylaxis. I don't see it here, but it's one of those things I usually have to go all the way to 40x and look carefully. And often, even with looking carefully, I can usually only pick it up in some cases on the von Casa stain. So if you have eccrine coils, it's a worthwhile thing to think about looking carefully there. Maybe do a von Casa and look for it. It can be helpful. And then the acute ischemia sign, the dead, wiped out ghost epidermis. Sometimes it's dramatic like this, but if it just happened, like this skin right here is not totally dead, right? It's like if you've seen Monty Python and the Holy Grail, it's like I'm not quite dead yet. If you laughed at that, thank you. If you didn't understand, that's okay. You may consider watching that movie sometime. It's old school, but it's pretty funny. So here, the top of the epidermis is starting to die. The rest is not happy, but it's still clinging on for life. So this sign right here makes me even think, if I see this, I'm like, ooh, I wonder if we have acute ischemia that just hasn't quite killed this tissue yet. If you wouldn't have biopsied this, maybe it'd be dead in a day or two, It's on its way out. It's on its way dying. And then areas there where you can see that's full-blown, complete acute ischemia. So this pattern is super important to recognize because it can be seen not only in calciphylaxis, but in DIC, any sort of coagulopathy where you have thrombosed vessels, cryoglobulinemia, really severe leukocytoclastic vasculitis where the vessels are blocked off. So all those settings. And look here, we can't see in real clarity, but this purple stuff here is actually probably bacterial colonies, which are super infecting, secondarily growing on this dead tissue culture. I'm sorry, this is like a dead culture plate. This dead tissue is like a perfect culture medium to grow bacteria. So I think anytime I see a big necrotic ulcer, it's common to see bacteria or sometimes fungus grow on the surface, sometimes making even the thick layer, but not down deep. So to me, that tells me certainly that's superimposed surface overgrowth of skin flora or maybe candida yeast when there's yeast there. The reason that's important is because a lot of times the question is, could there be infection? So if I just see bacteria or fungus on the surface of a dead acute ischemic ulcer, I will usually mention it. I think maybe decolonization might be helpful. I don't know. But if it's only on top, it's probably not playing any causative role in what's going on. If it's down deeper, things get more complicated, right? Then it becomes a question of, is it both or one or the other and one secondary? Okay. So we've talked about that for at length. I've got some examples with even better pictures online in a different video about calciphylaxis. You can go check it out on YouTube or Kiko. All right, 7.